Hello everyone, it's Ben here, and I'm back again with Rich.
Hello there.
And we're going to talk a little bit about Escape from Tarkov. Now, pretend I have absolutely no idea what Escape from Tarkov is, Rich, and tell me what Escape from Tarkov is.
Well, Escape from Tarkov, Ben, is a tactical shooter. It's a bit like Arma, but it's mixed with survival sim and survival elements, like a bit like DayZ. The fictional background is, or the backstory is, there's a fictional Russian city of Tarkov, which has descended into lawlessness after a major political scandal.
Hang on, right? Are we gonna escape?
That is the premise. Yeah, each scenario involves an escape. So what you'll do is you'll deploy into one of several raids. That's the game mode right now, and you'll need to choose equipment before you go in that's appropriate to that raid. So you spend a lot of time, which data nerds will enjoy, going through different menus, marveling at how detailed everything is.
It's a PC game, you say?
It is that. And you'll equip your character with these hyper-realistic guns and things, and then you'll deploy into the raid, and anything you take with you into the raid is lost if you're killed there or if you quit from the menu. But if you escape, as you say, if you find a physical exit in the raid and you leave through that, then essentially what you're doing is you're saving any progress that you've made in the raid. So you get to keep the stuff you take in, plus whatever you find while you're there, and any skills that you've leveled up while playing in the raid. So the objective essentially is to search loot caches and the corpses of killed enemies, level up your skills, looting, exploration, healing, shooting with different guns and so on, and then exit successfully. Right,
so but if I die during the raid, is that it? Am I reset to 0, or do I go back to the point when I first entered that raid?
You lose, or you'll reset essentially to the... Well, no, you're not reset to the point where you go into the raid. You lose all the gear you've got on you, apart from the stuff that's in a little magic box that you can take in.
Okay, right. So there is like a protect me button, basically.
There's like a little magic box, which is only 6 slots, so you can't fit like big ticket items like big guns and things.
Okay, sure. Because so you say 6 slots, but that's not 6 items. That's like 6. That's like a machine gun, maybe, if that. Right?
No, so I think it might be an SMG or a pistol.
Right, sure. So like a health kit and a half.
Yeah, something like that. There is also in the full release. There's also an insurance system promised. So before you go into the raid, you might be able to buy insurance for a particular weapon. But I don't think that was in the alpha, so I don't know what that's going to look like.
Fair enough. So you mentioned it was hyper realistic. Now, I mean, are we talking Arma realistic? Are we talking even more than that? Where are you with
this? They're trying to be as realistic as, but they're trying to be actually realistic. So bunch of different features on this. Like guns will wear out with use, and you have to repair them. They get more likely to jam and misfire as they wear out. Those are things that will happen. There's realistic ballistics. They're very proud of their ballistics model. They've talked about bullet drop and ricochets and penetration. And apparently it's even capable of modeling the effect of bullets going through soft targets. So they'll bounce around inside your body, and they might come out at a different angle than when they were in.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But it can be a little bit frustrating because these things can cause you to miss in ways that aren't always obvious. But if you're a realism nut, then I guess that's a feature you'll enjoy.
Well, there's so much you got to relearn, right? Like, because even something like Counterstrike, for example, that is like billed as realistic, but it isn't really.
It's not.
There's all sorts of jumps you can do. The way people move isn't realistic. It's very, very quick.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess did you find it annoying as someone, because you're not a huge fan of this type of thing, right? You kind of jumped into this blind.
I did a bit, yeah, and I think from time to time there were, especially when taking shots at a distance, when I perhaps wasn't guessing the bullet drop accurately. There probably were moments where in any other shooter I would have hit shots and I wasn't, and that was a little bit annoying. But yeah, I mean, if you're really into realism and you insist on the game being as realistic as it can be within a game engine, then you'll enjoy it when I didn't. I
saw a little bit of Escape from Tarkov at GDC last year. And they mentioned to me something you've written down here, which is the extensive weapon modification system.
Yeah.
How was that to play? Because when I saw it, it was like you could strip a gun completely back to where it had almost nothing. It was just kind of some bullets and a firing, rack.
Yeah.
What's it like now? What's it like to actually play with?
I hadn't tried that. That's interesting. They do say I had a bunch of weapon mods and I played around with them all, and the impact that they had on the stats of the gun were sort of -3 handling or whatever it was. I have to say I don't think I played enough to get a real sense of how much difference it's going to make, but there are like dozens of weapon modification points on each gun. And the devs say that you'll be able to do things like, literally take off a stock and replace it with a piece of rubber if you want. So, if you're a fan, if you know what weapon modification is like actually in real life, then again they're going to try and deliver that, because they've got a couple of guys on the dev team. One of them is ex-Spetsnaz.
Oh right, okay.
So
Jesus.
yeah, like they are real gun fans, and they're trying to do this as realistically as they possibly can. There's things like there's no HUD either, so you have to so if you want to know how many rounds you've got left in your magazine, you'll have to manually eject it and take a look at it.
All right, and there's none of the kind of like you reload and then you somehow have turned 2 half magazines into 1 full magazine.
None of that.
Well, you probably can do that, but you have to individually take them out at a time, right, or something like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, that would be how you do it. I don't know if they have that in the game.
Yeah, that sounds like something they probably developed down the line. Yeah. So I mean, we're talking so much about how realistic it is, and it's a online shooter which is super realistic, set in a dystopian future. So it must have survival elements of some kind.
Yeah, there are some. You'll need to while you're in there, you've got a hydration meter, so you'll need to eat and drink in order to stay hydrated and topped up. I'm not sure what the impact of like being getting dehydrated is. Maybe headaches and passing out, visual blurring, reduced accuracy. These are the sorts of things you'd expect. Taking gunshot wounds will cause bleeding as well, so you'll need to use medkits to staunch the flow, and that can lead to unconsciousness. That happened to me a couple of times. Not actually passing out, but losing a lot of blood.
And in the game, right?
Yeah, and in the game. Concussions and infections are also in the game, but they didn't happen to me while I was playing. And there's another counter on your player status gauge when you look in the menu for some status effect that I didn't come across. So
okay, so basically it's packed with stuff that can happen to you that is not good.
Yeah, loads of opportunities to get yourself in trouble.
So how did all that tie together? Like, what was it like to play?
If it had to sum up sort of atmosphere in one word, it would be tense.
Right.
Like your own footsteps are very are kind of unnervingly loud, especially in confined spaces and especially on certain surfaces. And even when you're outside doing things like brushing through foliage, which is normally a good tactic, right, to try and keep yourself out of sight.
Yeah.
But that'll make a loud noise when you're brushing past trees and things. And listening without any HUD or any radar or anything like that, what you've really got to do is keep your ears peeled at all times for enemy movements. So listening for footsteps, gunfire, and doors, things like that. That's your best way to track down enemies. So if you're going to play, I definitely advise directional speakers or headphones or ones which are good at localizing sound. So in my experience, it was long periods of creeping cautiously behind the trees on one of the larger maps, which is called Woods, where I definitely got killed by snipers laying traps and things like this.
Right.
But then the sort of sense of tension that the game is otherwise very good at building, it can lapse into boredom on slower paced maps like that, I found.
Yeah, this is the problem I've had when I've tried to play something like DayZ or Arma. Again, as someone who, like you, maybe isn't particularly massive fan of the hyper-realism that it offers. But I suppose this early you'd probably expect it to be similar to other games like that.
I found it was a particular problem if there aren't many other players in the raid. I mean, I think you're not supposed to. When I spawned in, there was an indicator in the menu that suggested how many other players were in the session, but I'm not sure that'll make it into the final game. I don't think the devs necessarily want you to know how many other players.
Doesn't sound realistic, as it
were. Well, quite. But then for long sessions on large maps like that, there were sessions on smaller maps like Factory, for instance, which did crank the tempo up just a little bit. So smaller maps, Factory in particular, was very confined, felt very claustrophobic, lots of tunnels, lots of corridors, leading onto sort of open spaces where you feel very vulnerable. I thought the map design was actually quite strong, because you never really feel safe at any point. And if you spawn into a raid like that with lots of other people in there, then I don't want to say it'll get hectic, but it still feels. You'll feel like you're under a lot of pressure.
Sure, yeah, and I suppose like a game like this, its idea of hectic isn't the same as the idea of like a Quake Arena hectic.
No,
it's not going to be 7 people jumping around a room. It's going to be there. Oh God, there's 3 other people in this half mile as me. What am I going to do?
But still tense. I definitely say tense. And map knowledge will be critical. That's clear. So you need to know which places to avoid. You need to know where to go to set up ambushes that you can win. And most importantly, of course, you'll need to learn the best paths to the exits. Yeah.
So is it not randomly generated each time then?
I didn't get that impression. There was that on. I know that was posted on one of the forums, and someone said that it was randomly generated, but I don't think the devs have said that.
Okay, so it's sitting in alpha at the moment, right? So presumably you came across at least a couple of bugs.
A few glitches and a few bugs. One which happened consistently actually was opening the menu in game and going through its tabs. If you do that, when I did that, if I found that it froze, basically it hanged, and I couldn't get out of the menu, and I was sitting there like a sitting duck. And so one guy came up behind me and shot me, and the other time I didn't want to wait for that to happen, so I just quit out. There was another session where the servers were quite slow to respond, so I was waiting for 5 minutes to find a game, and because of these sorts of things, I lost quite a lot of gear to these problems when I just sort of quit out, which was a little bit annoying. But hey, it's alpha, so
yeah, I assume all this stuff's going to get reset anyway before launch. So.
Yeah,
it's an alpha. There are glitches. You've had a reasonable time with it. It sounds pretty unique in terms of what it's offering. Should people be paying money to get a chance to access this now, as that is the business model at the moment?
That does seem to be the business model. I'm not sure I personally love it. If you're interested in this sort of thing, definitely keep an eye on it. Definitely try and play it you'll get a guaranteed access to the beta if you pre-order any edition. But if you want to get into the alpha, which is live now, or going through different waves of happening now, then you only get a percentage chance depending on the package that you order. And if you pre-order a more expensive package, then you get a bigger loot stash, which means more gear and more guns to go into so even if you die a lot, you won't completely run out of gear, and you'll also have a higher percentage chance of admission to the alpha. So, up to you. If you're mad keen, then I guess consider that. But personally, I'd advise sticking around and waiting for the beta.
Fair enough. We'll be keeping an eye on it, certainly. It definitely looks very interesting. I'm really interested to see, how far it goes. Release date, I assume they're not even talking about at this point. No. Probably, I would guess 2018 from what you've said, but maybe not even the beta until the start of 2018, and then.
Oh, I don't know. I think we might get the beta in 2017 at least.
Right, but probably later on this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be keeping track of it. Let us know in the comments if you're interested in this game, what you thought of what you've seen today, and do subscribe for more of the same.
Take care.